सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। In AtmaBodha, we had seen earlier till the 16th shloka. The concept of AtmaBodha is Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya is trying to analyze for us the various aspects that or various angles that have to be taken and made a note of, so that we could slowly but steadily grow in our path of spirituality. The final realization being that we realize AtmaBodha, Atma self, Bodha is the knowledge of the self. Why is this AtmaBodha that important? That which we are essentially searching for or seeking, in the methods that we are trying to seek, we would be left disappointed, dejected, that which we are seeking is not found, though with the method being very intensely pursued. The self within is the very nature of happiness. If the self within is the nature of happiness, why is it that we don't experience that happiness? Why is it that we have varied categories of happinesses, if we can divide it into such? So some people have a materialistic happiness, some people have various kinds of happiness. So the understanding is that we are not in that state of happiness because of forgetting or not realizing our own true nature. Now, if something has been forgotten, what should be the method to remember it? The knowledge of it is the only method. Now, for example, if there is a dark room, how do you remove the darkness? Bring some source of light. If you take a vacuum cleaner, I'm just imagining weird, and try to suck the darkness out, intention is right, but the method implemented is wrong. However long you keep sucking that darkness out, it doesn't help. Or maybe another weird thought is, maybe spray some bleach to take away the darkness. Bleach works in its own field. Vacuum cleaner works in its own field. To remove darkness, there is only one method, is to bring the source of light. As soon as you bring source of light, as the Upanishads claim it, asatoma sadgamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya. So the moment there is light, the darkness is gone. Similarly, if my nature is of happiness or bliss, Ananda Swarupa, why am I not experiencing it? Why am I not going through that phase of Ananda? Is because of self-forgetfulness. If avidya, forgetfulness is avidya. If avidya is the cause for me not experiencing Ananda, how do I remove that avidya? Can any process in the name of spirituality which is not providing vidya of the self be claimed as the right method? If in the name of spirituality the different processes themselves are not applicable because they don't provide vidya, the outside pursuit for that vidya, will it ever achieve anything? So he is going step by step through various processes of analysis to highlight where we have gotten identified, fixed, or have a conviction to change that idea, to change that conviction, and to change that identification. He is taking various examples, various scenarios where our mind or intellect or as a personality we would have gotten clinging on to. So we have seen till the 16th shloka. The 17th shloka we will proceed further. Before I move forward with the 17th shloka, just to make sure that we have finished 16th shloka. Do you remember? Okay. So let's go with my memory. So repeat the 17th shloka. Okay, good. Sada sarvagatopyatma, sada sarvagatopyatma, na sarvatra bhasate, na sarvatra bhasate, buddha veva bhaseta, vevavabhaseta swacheshu pratibimbavat. Almost the similar kind of thought is taken up even by our Tulsi Das ji in the invocation of Hanuman Chalisa. So there he says, or he uses the simile of a mirror. See, a mirror is a very faithful and a very truthful companion. It will not lie because it is not connected to Photoshop. As is the person standing in front of the mirror, it reflects the truth. You like it, don't like it, it's a different issue. But the mirror does a good job of reflecting. Now, if that mirror, say, I'll give you a couple of scenarios. If the mirror is covered with dust, it happens. You know, if you never end up using that mirror, you will not clean it and it will have a lot of dust on it. While we were in the ashram, in our brahmacharis' quarters, on each floor there are 12 people living, and every month we had a barber who used to come and bring us to this state. It was every month. So there was no need for a comb. So that much of time was saved, conserved. And most of us by the second or third month found it convenient. Instead of standing and putting chandan, it takes a lot of time. So we found it convenient to use bhasma vibhuti, so that we don't need to stand in front of a mirror. So all that you have to do is put your hand in that bhasma packet and then run your fingers on your forehead. Some pattern will come, 3 lines pattern. So over a period, that mirror which was installed in the bathroom section had gotten so filled with dust because nobody ever used it. And once our Guruji came on a surprise visit, but we got the note of it as he was walking towards. So, tidying up the rooms, and then the mirror was the most difficult thing. The more we tried spraying water and cleaning it, the more dirtier it became. So, after he visited everything, and then he laughed looking at the mirror, and he said, if in urgency you want to clean the mirror, the better method would be to sprinkle the vibhuti mixed with water, sprinkle on it, and after say a couple of minutes, take a paper and wipe it. Along with the dust, this vibhuti also is removed. It comes out sparkling clean. No Windex required. So that is one method to clean the mirror so that it will reflect the best. Now there can be second kind of a disturbance. This was in, I think, Kedarnath or Badrinath, I don't remember where. Outside there was a little wash basin. We had just had food. So we went to wash, and there was a mirror, and it was not on the wall, it was sort of hanging down. It was just like in the air, it was hanging with a thread tied down to some hook on the top. After washing my hands, I looked into it. Suddenly, very gently though, the mirror had a movement. But the feel that I had, before I could realize that it is the mirror moving, the feel that I had the moment I looked into it was that the entire thing that was being reflected there was as though moved. As though you have you ever gone through the earthquake effect? Everything moves, and it was that kind of an effect, and suddenly I caught onto a wall or some kind of a support. Then to realize and smile at myself, okay, this is not a earthquake, it is just a mirror moving. If the mirror is shaky, if the mirror is dirty, the reflection will also be the same. Similarly, if our buddhi, subtler than the organs of perception action is the mind, subtler than the mind is the buddhi. It is the subtlest of the entire equipment that we have. And how is that buddhi? That buddhi is constantly racing, constantly with its own patterns of indecisive disturbances, various kinds. And if the buddhi is constantly in a shaky platform, that which will be reflected in that buddhi, how will it be? It will be disturbed. If that buddhi is covered with various kinds of vasanas, likes, dislikes, and various patterns, would there be a reflection at all? Because it is smeared, and that which is smeared cannot reflect properly. It cannot do its job. So here he says, Sada sarvagataha api atma na sarvatra avabhasate. Though the self is all pervading, I am not able to perceive the pervasiveness of the self. Why am I not able to perceive it? Buddhau eva avabhaseta. It reflects in the buddhi. But how is that buddhi? Is it available? It is busy. Constantly it has a itch to keep calculating. That is how the buddhi is constantly working. Its job is to constantly keep calculating. You step into an environment, so you look around and then you are looking at people and how are they looking at me? Are they smiling? Are they not smiling? So you have a certain calculation. How do I present myself? Do I go aggressively? Do I go non-aggressively? Do I also smile? Do I not smile? A constant processing, churning is happening. And is it something very productive churning? Probably not. So if you are going through some process or going through a book or something that you are reading and your buddhi is constantly evaluating it and trying to understand and grasp it, productive. But there are things that the buddhi constantly is rattling. And it is also smeared. It is also smeared with various layers and layers of vasanas. Various kinds of masks that it creates so that it can go out and interact with the world outside. It's such a task, I tell you. If we are not true to ourselves, and every environment we keep creating a certain personality or certain mask of ourselves to present ourselves. Imagine how difficult it is to remember, okay, last time what did I present in this environment to this person? How did I present myself? So I had to remember myself, and constantly the buddhi is working. But is that a productive processing? It is not a productive processing. And because of this unproductive, unwillful processing of the buddhi, is it available, accessible for us? It is never accessible. So here he says, though the buddhi is the greatest equipment that we have, by not focusing and nourishing and taking care of that buddhi, by not bringing a controlled accessibility over that buddhi, do we see that self reflect in that buddhi? It is not available. Where will it reflect? How can it reflect? Like this student went to a master and he demanded, he said, teach me Brahma Vidya now. So the master said, you have come a long way, chai piyoge? Ha, yes. And he also said, kadak chai, strong special chai. So the master said, okay. So he brought a cup and saucer and he brought the kettle out and started pouring. So by the time it was 3/4 full, he said, enough, I think that is my capacity. He kept pouring. Now the cup was full. The cup was about to overflow. He looked at that master and said, are you really a master? Can't you see the cup is overflowing? Can't you stop? But there was no movement or there was no, dialogue between these two. He kept pouring. The cup started overflowing. The saucer started overflowing. And it finally started overflowing onto the table. He said, can't you see? It is all overflowing. So he said, so what should I do? He said, stop. Stop pouring. I said, okay. So you are very practical. He said, yes, I am. So before we start, why don't you go Remove all that which is overflowing in your mind. Come back. Come back with an empty vessel so that I can pour the right wisdom in there. That is why many masters have defined spiritual growth as not as a process of doing, but they have defined it as a process of undoing. You know, the layers and layers after layers, like the onion that you peel, or the cabbage you keep peeling. There are enough layers covering that buddhi. Now, before we comment on that buddhi, what to do, Swamiji? The manufacturer's defect. Buddhi was given to us like this only. Many of the buddhis are as straightforward as a jalebi. Have you seen jalebi? I said, this was given like that, manufacturer's defect, what can I do? See, the buddhi, as this body was, as this whole equipment was being made, this comes in AtmaBodha and various other scriptures. So there it is mentioned that buddhi is made from the most sattvic, most pure form of matter. Both buddhi, manas and all these equipments are nothing but matter, but subtlest of them, and it is of the pure nature. But what did we do with that buddhi? It is like our wallets and purses. When you buy it, it is good, but over a period of time, it keeps bulging. Why does it keep bulging? And especially if you have 2-3 young ones, what to say? You carry the entire family there. Anything required, anything wanted, at any moment, you would rough estimate somewhere in that corner you should find it, and you put your hand, and then you get something else. Oh, I was searching for this 3 days ago. And one fine day you empty it all, and you see so many papers, so many bills, so many receipts, so many things that you were searching for, finally found. We have just filled it. Similarly, this buddhi, though it has got amazing capacity, what have we done? We have put layers and layers and layers of it, overpacked it. Okay, let's not talk in past tense. Overpacking it, present continuous tense. Sometimes even the spiritual knowledge, without emptying it, is also another layer added in, which only overpacks it. So, though the buddhi is something that is so amazing as an equipment that we have, what does it do? It does an amazing job of processing things. Do you want to test it? What is this? How much time did it take for you to answer? Not even a second. The moment the question was asked, the answer was ready. It may seem a very simple answer, but imagine the processing that has to happen. Compare it with your computer. You have to search for a file or a folder. You don't know where you have saved it, but you know the name vaguely, that it could be the name of the file that you have saved. So you go into that search mode and type in the file name and search. And if you have a bigger memory on it, hard disk, it keeps going on in the circle, that viewfinder or that lens kind of a thing, it keeps going on and on and on. Sometimes it happens. There is somebody that comes across, you know you have seen that person, You are racking your head up. What could be the name of this person? I know him very well. Who is he? Awkward situation. That person comes, addresses you by name and then greets you. How are you doing? You are like, doing good. But inside what is happening? The buddhi is processing, frantically processing. Who could this person be? Where did I meet him? What could be the place? What could be the name? No incident is being recollected. And then looking at your predicament, the person says, remember last time we met? Right, you are. Immediately when the tag is referred and your tag is refreshed, immediately you cognize. It happens. Another incident is sometimes you start thinking about something that you want from the other room. You get up and start walking and somebody talks to you or something happens, and then you are standing there after the chat is over. You are standing there thinking, why am I here? I know I was going for something, but I don't remember what am I trying to go for. Then you come back to the room where you were, and then as you are sitting, you recall, okay, this is the thing. Then again you get up and go. But it happens very rarely. Every single minute of the day, every waking moment, buddhi is constantly processing. And that processing is an amazing asset that we have, provided we know how to process. Because we are busy in what to process, but we have never learned the techniques as to how to process. If we learn how to process, which is a conscious effort, alert effort, dedicate time to constantly see how we process things and learn that technique, major chunk of junk is deleted from that buddhi. That buddhi becomes available, starts becoming subtle and sharp. And what is the sharpness of the intellect? To cognize and process things immediately, without a time lag. That is the sharpness. And what is the subtlety? Subtlety is to grasp something even before it can unfold itself. Whether it is somebody's statement, somebody's word, somebody's action, somebody's intention. You know, the people talk about body language. You know, when you are looking at someone and they are constantly, what does that indicate? They have not said anything. Looking at their face, their physical aspect, you can immediately gauge. I say, okay, not friendly. Even when I am looking at all of you and when I am speaking, whether I am reaching out or not, how do I understand? With the way that you are seated, that's more than sufficient. The way you are sitting, the way you are looking, there is that spark in the eyes as I keep speaking, if you understand. If somebody was looking at you while you are speaking, what would that mean? It means that person is totally lost. He has no idea as to what you are trying to communicate. Right? So the buddhi is very sharp and very subtle. that sharpness and subtlety when gained, it starts getting closer to the self within, and that self reflects in that buddhi, which is now sharp and subtle, attaining to its state of purity as you grow conscious of its processing. So he says, buddhau eva avabhaseta swacheshu pratibimbavat. Like the mirror, clean mirror. And there is another aspect of mirror. What does it do? It reflects everything, rejects nothing, retains nothing. That's the best part of the mirror. Anybody who comes, stands in front of the mirror, what is its job? To reflect. It cannot say, slim down and come, you are looking horrible. Because it rejects none. And thank goodness, it does not have a memory of its own. Because it retains nothing. Imagine 10 years ago how we were. The best way to keep yourself busy is to give a booklet of photographs of your own. By the time you move from one photograph to the other, because you start constantly thinking, at that time I was like this, at that time this was like this. Imagine if all those were in the mirror. We would seldom look at that mirror. Why? It keeps telling us the truth, how we were and how we are. Similarly, after the processing is done, if the buddhi can remove all the reminiscent effects from it and keep itself clean. We have to keep our buddhi constantly clean, not cluttered, like the mirror. Then the pratibimba of that, reflection of that self within is seen obviously. Presently, what is it? It is not that obvious. Continuing further, he says, Dehendriyamano buddhi, Dehendriyamano buddhi, Prakritibhyo vilakshanam, Tibhyo vilakshanam, Tadvritti sakshinam vidyat, Tadvritti sakshinam vidyat, Atmanam rajavat sada. When there are these national holidays, at least it used to happen back in India, January 26th, August 15th, in New Delhi they have this parade, and the president stands in there for the salute. There are so many amazing things that keep going in front. Here the similar example given, Atmanam rajavat sada, that the self within is like the king. As soon as the king steps into the court, there is an order in the court. People may be talking until then, people may be, whispering, talking, whatever is happening, interacting. Before the king comes, there is an announcement. Beware, the king is on his way. And as the king steps in, everybody gets up, salutes the king and sits down. And after the business hour is done, then there is an entertainment section. There are musicians singing, there are dancers dancing. If the dance and the music and whatever is being presented is amazing, so the king immediately gives them even the gifts. But all this is done for the king in his presence. Similarly, Deha Indriya Mano Buddhi Prakritibhyo Vilakshanam Tad Vritti Sakshinam Vidyat Atmanam. Here he says, that self within, what is it? It is the Sakshi. Sakshi, it is just a witness. Even in the court of law, when the witness is called Sakshi, it is because Sakshivat Pashyati. The one who has personally seen it with their own Akshi. Akshi is the eyes. That is why they are called a witness. So this Atma is like the witness. What is it doing? It is a witness of Deha, Indriya, Mano, Buddhi. Deha has its own nature. Manas has its own nature. Buddhi has its own functionalities. Now, what is the nature of this? What is the functionality of the body? Very broadly classified. They are the 5 organs of perception and 5 organs of action. I am classifying this as Vedantic purpose. If in an anatomy class, there are different kinds of classification. There is a muscular system, there is a nervous system, there is a skeletal system. Any other systems? Okay, that went too fast. So many systems that you can categorize it, but Vedantically you can classify it as 2 organs of perception, organs of action. Each organ of perception again has its specific field, and that is another amazing thing. Each organ follows its own field of purpose, does not meddle with other things. Eyes don't taste, ears don't smell. Different perception of organs of perception have their own different fields. And the organs of action have their specific field of functionality. So the scripture says, master them. Gain mastery over them. What does mastery mean? See, a long time ago, I had gone to somebody's house. This is when I was in college, and the outside under the name there was a little poster card or some kind of a thing. It said, beware not, because back in India there, beware of dogs. So it said, beware not just of the dog but of its master too. And on one side dog was sleeping and the master was shown screaming. So I kept knocking on that gate and nobody answered. Probably I won't have tried it now. So I climbed the gate, got to the other side. It was a really huge gate. So got up, got to the other end. After getting down, after releasing myself from the gate, I turned around. There were two big dogs. Sleek looking big black dogs with their tongues wagging out. If I had moved even an inch, they were ready to pounce. And I had nowhere else to go. The only method of my escape was the gate. I just had jumped, turned around, saw there was not much of a scope for me to climb that again. And I was sure these could have easily grabbed me down from there. So it was, I was staring at it, they were staring at me. In that intense moment, I couldn't even think of shouting the person whom I had come to meet. And luckily, he had stepped into the balcony, saw my predicament. And in India, the names of dogs are Tommy, Julie. Sit! He screamed from the balcony. They sat. And he quickly came down and he rescued me from there. And as he was taking me towards the house, he turned around and snapped his fingers. And they got up, started walking behind us. As we were talking, they were waiting outside the door. And he was trying to warn me, never do this again. These are ferocious dogs. And then he threw 2 biscuits down. Usually when the biscuit is seen by a dog, what will they do? Pounce, eat. Right? They kept looking at the biscuit but did not eat. And then again he snapped his finger and looked at them. You are now permitted to eat, kind of. They pounced, finished that biscuit. I don't know whether he was a master of that house or not. But that's always under debate. But he was definitely the master of those dogs. Because the dogs behaved exactly as was the choice of the master. Mastery over dogs. Order the same kind of authority over the mind and intellect and our organs of perception action. Tell the mind, it is just a passing phase of thought. Snap out of it. Do you think the mind will snap out of it? It does not even pay heed to what we are instructing. Reprioritize life. You have ordered the intellect. Does it reprioritize? It goes back to its own earlier tendencies and patterns. So what do I mean when I say mastery over it? Gaining accessibility over it, wherein it behaves as you want it to behave and not behave according to its own whims and fancies. Never should the mind turn around and say, let's do this. Mood nahi hai. Who asked you? It's sometimes like when you talk to your own children, and you say, we are going. We are not interested. So as parents, what is your answer to them? Did anybody give you a choice? You are going, period. No discussions. Don't you say that? Similarly, can we talk to our mind and intellect? Can we talk to our body? I am feeling very lethargic. Get up! This is something that has to be fulfilled. Go do it, fulfill it. I don't feel like it. Did somebody give you a choice there? No, go finish it. Do we have that kind of mastery? Dehendriya mano buddhi prakritibhyo vilakshanam. Unless we have gained that mastery, we cannot be a witness of it. Now, where are we? We are so identified with our body, so identified with our mind, so identified with our intellect. Any modification to this body, mind and intellect, we feel terribly modified. If there is a sudden thought of emotion, we tend to become that emotion immediately. There is no recourse. There is not even a moment of pause to think, should I really become that? We don't even withdraw. We just get swayed by it and keep getting tossed in that emotion. Unless for some thing that happens, that emotion snaps, and then you, okay, good. And by the time you are taking the sense of relief, another emotion comes, we are tossed. Buddhi, it also has its own lack of clarity, does its own things. At the physical level, the habits, they die hard. You have made a New Year resolution. I will not snack in between. You see a packet of chips, packet of pistachios, salted pistachios. You very casually open one, toss. Do you ever find yourself stopping after one? What happens? It starts with one from that packet, ends only when the packet is empty. Have you seen the chips packet? Whether it is a small packet or a big packet. And here you get a jumbo size, a mammoth size. You start and it keeps going on. We can't control it. Unless at the body, mind and intellect level, we have seen that it is regulated and has a pace wherein it is accessible. Do you think we are qualified for anything higher than that, subtler than that? So at a physical level, tending to its physical needs and trying to gain that balance at that physical level. At an emotional level, trying to gauge each emotion, each pattern of emotion, how at each time there is a trigger and I am triggered into a certain mood. In spite of the triggers, how do I maintain myself that I don't get carried away? Then at the buddhi, knowing what is the priority, how to prioritize, how to process. Looking, I keep giving this example. What will happen to a system wherein there are 20-30 processes running parallelly? Computer system, if there are 20-30 parallel processings running, there are 10-15 chat boxes open. There are, couple of explorers open. In each explorer, there are umpteen number of tabs. There is music. And you are downloading something, then you are uploading something. What will happen to that system? It slows down. And if you overdo it, no, before crash there is another step. It freezes, it hangs. Translate hang into Hindi. लटक जाता है, अटक जाता है. Many of our lives are also like that. And I really sympathize with the answers. How are you? Hanging in there. लटक रहा हूँ. I am a very caricature person, so I immediately draw. Just hanging in there, holding on. Why? Because there is so much of unnecessary processing and it has not been curtailed. Without taking these three into account, without balancing them at that level, we cannot stand as a witness to watch it. Because we are constantly carried away by it. And that is the reason why many times when there is a moment of emotion called anger, when do we realize, oh gosh, it was not right on my part to get angry? After effect. When you know there is somebody who is doing something that is really irritating you. When do you realize that it was not worth getting irritated? Afterwards. When do you realize that you have overeaten? Body gives its signal. Do you know what that signal is? It is called the burp. When we have that burp, it means stop, I am full. Now we are like, Why? Just can't control. Because we have never learned to say no and we ended up saying yes because of lack of balance and control. We have seen with the buddhi, we have seen with the manas, we have seen with the body. And what is the basic thing lacking to restructure these three things to get that accessibility and control? One thing that is lacking is called discipline. We like controlling others and putting others in discipline. We don't have children here today. So let us be open and frank with our own children. What is our advice? You have to get up in the morning, you have to do this, you have to do this, and make sure you do this, don't do this. We want discipline in their lives. And the more you start insisting on discipline, what do? They take pleasure in breaking every rule that you have set. And many parents tell, Swamiji, I thought my first child was too much to handle. Now with my second child, I understand. First child was an angel. Never resisted, never spoke like this. My second one, I don't know how to handle. That is a different game with the first one. So different rules apply. This is a different game with the second one. different rules apply. But in either cases, try disciplining, there is always a sense of urgency to reject that discipline, break that discipline. That is why the scriptures have always insisted. What is it that is required? It is called self-discipline. By the self, for the self, instructed by the self. And we are very good at doing it, provided we are convinced that that discipline is a necessity, a must. But when we are not convinced, we are lost. A simple discipline, waking up in the morning, is a physical level, okay? Waking up in the morning. Who sets the alarm? You set the alarm. How many alarms? Thank you for sincere answers. More than one, because all these smartphones have these days customizable. What do we do whenever it rings? Snooze them, right? A simple discipline. We have set it for ourselves, but I don't think it is done with conviction. So we end up breaking it every single day. Constantly we keep breaking it. That day when you are really convinced that you have to get up, it can be anything. But one thing that I have noticed people not use their alarm but wake up before alarm is when they have to catch a flight. Say there is a red eye and you have to catch that flight. You put your alarm at 4 o'clock or 4:30. You wake up 5 to 10 minutes before the alarm can ring. Meaning what? If you are totally convinced and that conviction drives the discipline. Most of our discipline these days, there is no conviction. And without that conviction, we keep attempting at it. We further lose our own self-esteem. We lose our own self-confidence. And then finally, they brand ourselves. You know what? I am good for nothing. I am like this only. What can I do? But we have never tried in the right mode. Unless we try to grow out of this Deha, Indriya, Mana, Buddhi with that kind of discipline, with that kind of dedication, which is driven by the conviction, we cannot become the witness. Now, once that discipline is brought in and we have accessibility to Deha, Indriya, Mano, Buddhi, what does it mean to be a witness? Like the moment you step in, like there is a Balavihar thing, and 5 minutes before we start off, the moment I step in, what happens to all those chattering, murmuring? It immediately stops. And even if there are couple or two, three groups here and there that are talking, all that I have to do is look at them. And the moment they notice that I am looking, everybody is straightened out. I don't need to utter a word. I don't need to get angry. I don't need to get irritated. Just one look. What am I doing? I am just being a witness. Who is it that is trying to witness? It is the subtle intellect, it is the sharp intellect who is the witness. Witness of everything that happens in the intellect as well as in the mind, in the organs of perception, action at the body level. But that witnesshood of the intellect also drops in its subtlety, and then what happens is the self alone is witnessing everything. In the light of self alone, everything starts happening. Before even we can attempt at witnessing, what should we attempt? Having control, balance and accessibility with our body, mind and intellect. In order to have that, we need to have disciplining, self-discipline. In order to have self-discipline, we need to have conviction. And when that conviction is born, the rest of the steps are meticulously reached. Moving forward, he says in the 19th shloka, but those who don't understand this logic, what happens to them? In the 19th shloka it is said, Vyaprateshvindriyeshvatma Vyaprateshvindriyeshvatma Vyapari va vivekinam Vyapari va vivekinam Drishyate bhreshu dhavatsu Drishyate bhreshu dhavatsu Dhavan nivayatha shashi Nivayatha shashi. In this country I have not seen it as a possibility, but back in India, summers, we had a fun time because of various reasons. Electricity was not very regular. If you are in that inside perimeters, you will be cooked up. So the best thing to do was take the entire, the foldable kind of beds, take it to the terrace and lay your bedding, and then 4 poles on each side. Why? So that you can tolerate the missile attack of the mosquitoes. They're literally this big. So you put the entire thing. And most of the kids would love to go up there after the meals and prepare their own bed. And as you are lying down and watching the beautiful sky, so there were many games that we would play. Sometimes we would play recognizing the cloud. There are different shapes. So I see a witch. So now the rest of them have to now go figure where it is and then identify it. And those who claim it first and identify it, they get the next chance to identify, and the rest of them, it goes on. Sometimes as you are observing these clouds, they are too fast because of the wind or the breeze. They keep moving. And if it is a full moon day, and today is a full moon day actually, and the breeze is moving those clouds faster than usual, and try it sometimes. If you keep observing the clouds which are right under the moon over a period of 2 to 3 minutes, there is some sort of confusion. So you suddenly close your eyes, zoom in and zoom out once. The confusion that occurs because of the movement of these clouds, it appears as though that the moon is moving. A similar kind of experience is when you are in the train. Okay. It has come to the platform and your brother or your father, someone has got down to buy something. Most of the South Indian railway stations are pretty busy. After you cross Nasik, Nagpur, that area, until you reach Delhi, there is a dry spell. There is absolutely nothing that you find. Even sometimes the platform water in the taps is non-existent. I don't know, this is again 15 years ago, must have changed. So when you get down and you're waiting for them to come back, usually it stops 3 to 4 minutes. So they rush in and rush out that platform, and while you are waiting at that window looking out for them, you suddenly turned your head to the other side of the window and you see a sudden movement. There was a train standing, but there is a sudden movement and you quickly get confused. Did that train move or did this train move? Oh my God, did this move? And you cross-refer to another static point somewhere and then, okay, this train is not moving. It must have been the other train that is moving. There is a temporary that feel that happens. So similarly here he says, Vyaprateshu indriyeshu atma vyapari iva avivekinam. The organs of perception, action, the mind and intellect have their constant interaction with the world outside. And they go through a lot of modifications. It is inevitable, it is natural process, it will happen. But then, avivekinam, those who lose sight or those who lose track of things, what do they feel? What happens to them? They, in their moment of losing sight of things, they think that all this interaction and movement is mine. The intellect is going through various kinds of pressures. The mind is going through various kinds of emotions. And the body is going through various kinds of demands and desires. And every time there is a movement happening. That is why I said, how do you feel? Pretty shaken up. I am awfully shaken up. Why do you feel shaken up? What was moving? One of these was moving. But our association with them is so strong that it appears as if I am moving or I am going through that tremor. So what is the solution? The solution is to understand, first at least, change the conviction that I am not the body, mind and intellect. What am I? I am that because of which the body moves. I am that because of which the mind can interact. I am that because of which the intellect can decide. But the decisions or the emotions or the movements at the body level are not me. Because of electricity, you can hear the sound through the PA system. Because of the electricity, we can see each other under the light of this light giving sources. Because of electricity, though it is outside around what today 40, 45, 40s, we feel pleasant inside because the conditioned air. These are all the expression of each instrument, that which is touched by electricity. But is electricity light? Is electricity sound? Is electricity conditioned air? None of the above. It is that because of which all these instruments express these outputs. Similarly, at the body level, at the intellect level, at the mind level, all these various movements that happen because of the very touch of that divine spark. Again, going back to the earlier shlokas theme. When do I even understand that it is happening because of the touch of that consciousness? It is only when I am disidentified with the body, mind and intellect. As long as I am identified, I cannot pull myself out or see myself as non-movement. But even before I can disidentify, what is the earlier step to that? From a disturbing pattern to disidentify is almost impossible. Hence, therefore, substitute it with a pattern which is manageable. When that pattern is introduced, a disciplined system is introduced, then it is easier to pull myself out. Have you ever crossed roads in US? In front of your house? Okay, that road you have crossed. I'm just inquiring. Have you crossed the road as busy as Beltline? Okay. Have you ever crossed a freeway, a highway? Is it even possible? Such a difficult task. Constant flow of things, constant flow of vehicles. Don't even think of going in there to cross. Inside, if the movement is like the freeway traffic, it's not just the volume of it, it is also the speed of it. So how do you cross it if you are caught up in it? First, reduce the speed. Then, reduce the quantity. Now, once you have reduced the speed and reduced the quantity, it will be easier for you to step out of that freeway. And once you have learnt the art to step out of it, if you ever find yourself caught up again, you know the process how to step out of it. And those processes are called japa, puja, dhyana. When these are practiced, it gives us that edge to change the content, change the speed, reduce the quantity and step out of the movement so that I can observe the movement. The moment I disidentify from it and observe it, amazing thing happens. The movement also comes to a standstill. It's like going with your child, acting up. And the moment you turn your head and look at your child, what does your child do? For that moment, he's all steadied. But you have to focus and have that attention, and all the mischief is gone. Similarly, at the body, mind and intellect level. Vyaptruteshu indriyeshu vyapari iva atma avivekinam. For vivekinam, it was earlier said that those who involve having a disciplined system, self-disciplined system, which is driven by the convictions, they can easily disidentify. But the rest of them, they think every single movement that happens, every single interaction that happens, it seems to shake us off. That is why somebody said, I think it comes in the Mandukya Karika, and there they say that this entire spiritual process is called Achala Yoga. Presently, where are we? Chala Yoga. We keep tossing and turning. Where should we reach? To that stable platform. And then he continues in the 20th shloka. We will just read it today and see the in-depth meaning tomorrow. Atma Chaitanyamashritya Dehendriya Manodhiyaha Svakriyartheshu vartante Suryalokam yatha janaha. Here the conscious principle is being explained. The meaning of it we will see tomorrow. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.